Hello, podcast listeners. We know podcasts are a great way to catch up on a program that you may have missed on KSJE, and it's provided as a free service of this radio station. But you know, KSJE is now listener-supported, and so while you enjoy this podcast, we hope that you'll also take some time to join KSJE. Become a member today. It's quite easy to do. Just go to our website at ksje.com/support and pick the level of support that best matches your budget. Thanks again for listening. Here's your podcast.
Good morning. This is Traci Hales with Right On Four Corners on KSJE 90.9 FM in Farmington, New Mexico, and 103.3 in Durango, Colorado. Today I have great pleasure in interviewing Mark David Gerson. He's a prolific writer of many books, from fantasy, writing book, memoir, and Mark David will be talking to us from Arizona today, especially about his Cutana fantasy series. Hello, Mark David.
There.
Well, I really enjoyed going over your books and reading a little bit of the, is it Cutana, how you say that?
Quintana.
Quintana. Okay, the Quintana series, yeah. And the guys in there, the foursome that I got to know well, and really rooted for them. Yeah, but you are also a very prolific writer in other genres as well. Beside the fantasy, you're writing a writing coach. You have books on writing. You have the Way of the Fool series. And your memoir, and your memoir titled Pilgrimage: A Fool's Journey.
Yeah, I keep pretty busy, apparently.
I was going to say, yeah. It's interesting that you shift between these factual books and these feel-good books, and you also have your art form of photography going along with all that. So is it difficult to change hats or saddles, as it were?
Well, the nice thing about the photography, which is not true of the books are like a long-term relationship, which can last from months to years, depending on the book, whereas I take a photo and I fuss with it, and then it's done. So for the part of me that likes instant gratification and a sense of completion, the photography is great because, again, I'm sometimes with a book for a long time, and I know the end is there. I just don't see it.
It's way down there sometimes. I understand that.
Yeah.
Well,
and even if I know the ending, which I don't always, it's still a long way off.
Yeah, and it often changes, doesn't it?
It has changed a couple of times. In the Quintana book, The Star Quest, I was writing, I think it was the second to last scene when suddenly my whole concept of how the book was going to end changed.
Wow.
Yeah.
You have to bring up, since we're talking now about photography, is that the books are so colorful. I mean, the settings in which you put your characters, the world you have built here, so colorful. I wonder if your photography informs your writing in that way.
Well, I am very visual, and I think that probably does translate into the fiction and probably into the memoir as well. I mean, with Pilgrimage, one of the readers, or the reviewers rather, described it as kind of a cross between a memoir and a travelogue.
I could see that, right? Yep.
Part of, I think, being any kind of successful writer in any genre is getting the reader into the world you've created. It could be a factual world, but it could also be a fictional world, and getting the reader into that place, in that space, and having that person lose him or herself there. To me, as a reader, I want to experience that, and as a writer, I certainly wanted to be able to deliver that.
Yes, it's very visual. And I see that, and we'll go back to this, but I do see that the Quintana series is going to become film?
Yes, and it's a very long, slow process. I hope I'm still alive when it finally happens. You know, I had no plans for that to happen, and before the MoonQuest was published, a good friend kept saying, you know, you should write a screenplay, and I kept saying, I don't know anything about screenplays. She kept pestering me, and eventually I did. I wrote a screenplay adaptation of the manuscript. The book, again, had not been published yet. And not long after that, when the book was published, I met an independent film producer at one of my very first book signings for the MoonQuest, and that's how that journey began.
Oh. And you've since written a book about script writing.
Well, what happened was, you know, I write from a very intuitive, unstructured way. I don't outline, I don't plan, I don't plot. I just let the story kind of unfold for me, as I hope it will unfold for the reader as well. And screenwriting is very different.
Right.
Conventionally, you write an outline, you have index cards, you have all this kind of structured, engineered stuff. And when I finally surrendered to the idea of doing a screenplay adaptation, I went to the bookstore and kept looking for books on screenwriting that might be up my alley. And I really did. I found very little. So I wrote the screenplay anyhow, and of course, when the producer liked my screenplay, which kind of blew me away, it was my very first screenplay.
What?
I didn't know. I wasn't sure I knew what I was doing. But she loved the screenplay. She loved the screenplay, the screenplays of the sequels as well. I decided that if I couldn't find a book on screenwriting that served me the way I wanted to write, I would write the book on screenwriting that I couldn't find.
Oh, great.
And so that's what I did.
What you did.
And for some people, it's total anathema because, of course, they want to do it the conventional way. But I've had some wonderful feedback from readers who said, "Your book saved me. I just didn't. I could not do it the way everyone says to do it, and your book gave me a new way of doing it."
Oh,
In fact, one of the best reviews and testimonials I got was from a fellow in Southern California who produces and directs and acts, but also writes screenplays and stage plays, and he said, you know, finally a book that focuses on the story, on storytelling, not on structure.
Oh, right.
So that was a lovely review. In fact, it's now on the back cover of the book. But
Right.
that was a lovely testimonial because it really spoke to my approach. You know, I mean, the structure needs to be there, but it needs to be there to serve the story. The story isn't there to serve the structure. And that's kind of my approach to writing of all sorts.
There's so much to talk about and so many different ways to take this. Why don't you give our listeners just a bit of a synopsis on the Quintana series?
Sure. Well, the first book, The MoonQuest, which was never designed to be a series. It was a story that kind of snuck up on me and hit me over the head while I was teaching a writing workshop. And I certainly hadn't until then done the same writing exercise during the workshop, you know, when I was teaching. But that particular evening, I just felt moved to do the exercise. And what came out was the first scene of a very strange story that I knew nothing about and had no conscious desire to write. But I just stuck with it. And so the MoonQuest takes place in a mythical time and place where storytelling has been banned. Storytellers have been exiled or put to death. And the legend has it that the moon was so saddened by the silence in the land that she cried tears that extinguished her light. So the moon has not been seen. Obviously it's there, but it's been veiled for a very, very long time. And the MoonQuest was a young bard, a group of bards who have been exiled, sent off on this journey, this story and imagination and vision and dream to the land and restore lights to the moon. And so as I was writing that story, it suddenly dawned on me, I guess, it kind of hit me over the head, I suppose, again, because there were two other stories, the Star Quest and the Sun Quest.
Right.
So I didn't know what they would be about. And as it turns out, the Star Quest, they're generational So the MoonQuest is about young Toshar, his four companions, as they travel this journey. The StarQuest is about his daughter as an adult, and the SunQuest is about her son. And what links the three stories together, which I did not know at the outset, is the antagonist, who is not, obviously is not human, or he couldn't have lived through three generations of,
Right.
of people on Quest, but he has human surrogates in each of the stories. And when the third story ended, of course I can't tell you what happens to the antagonist, but when the third story ended, I thought it was done. Everything was wrapped up neatly, and I thought, well, that's great. I've got three screenplays, I've got three fantasies. That's the end of Quintana, but it wasn't. The writer is always the last to know.
Right.
So a couple of years, so I finished the SunQuest, I think, in 2014 maybe, 2014, 2015, and in 2018 or 19, I was living in Portland, Oregon at the time, and I woke up one morning, and I just felt like there was more to the story. And I said, well, there can't be more to the story because it's over.
It's done.
Everybody, the bad guys have been taken care of, the good guys are living happily ever after, and that's it.
No.
But, one of the things that I say in my books for writing and in my workshops and in my classes that the story is smarter than you are. The story is smarter than I am, for sure, as all my books have proven. And I said, well, if there's another story, let's just see. So I sat down, and for some bizarre reason, I thought I would write this, play with it as a screenplay first. So I sat down, and I don't know what I'm doing when I'm writing, not constantly, just began to write a scene. And the first scene in the book is, well, I didn't have it titled then. The title now is The Bard of Bryn Doon, Bryndoon. But in that opening scene that I wrote, a mother is telling her young son a bedtime story. And when when she's finished, she said, and usually her son is asleep by the time the story ends. This is his favorite story. And when the story ends, this takes place many generations after the end of the SunQuest in the same general land. And the story she's telling her son is the story of the SunQuest, his favorite story. And like for me, the writer, I thought it was over, right? And for his mother, she thinks it's over. But this kid, his name is Para, says, no, it's not over. And his mother says, well, that's all I know. That's the story's been handed down. That's all I know. And she says, and he quotes the MoonQuest, another one of the stories, because these are all stories from this land's past. So he quotes a line from the MoonQuest, and I'm writing this, of course, just as it comes. It's Toshar's grandmother in the MoonQuest who tells him before he sent out on this quest, I don't remember the exact wording, but it's something like, stories don't end. There's always more to the story. And as I write these words out of young Para's mouth into my computer, I go, it's a story talking to a story.
Wow.
And so in that moment, I was blown away. And in that moment, I knew that I had to keep at it. And I did. And at a certain point, I kind of abandoned the screenplay and did it as a novel. Then I went and finished the screenplay afterward. But yeah, it was probably the hardest book I've written since the MoonQuest, which scared the pants off me.
Oh, right.
Because I taught a method of writing without thinking and, kind of a stream of consciousness way of writing without planning or control issues. A story that's not even based in this reality,
right,
where I have no idea what's happening from one moment to the next, from one word to the next sometimes, totally flipped me out. But I did it, And with The Bard of Bryn Doon, you'd think every book would be easier, but of course each book challenges you more, creatively, hopefully, and emotionally as well. And The Bard of Bryn Doon, so each of the quests, MoonQuest, StarQuest, SunQuest stories, is told in the first person by the protagonist. So The Bard of Bryn Doon is told in 6 different first persons.
Oh, wow.
And 1 third person.
Goodness.
Yeah, I thought, I thought I was insane.
Right.
I had never read a book that, threw a whole bunch, that many different points of view in the first person at the reader.
Yeah.
All my creative insecurities, didn't. keeping track of the story, because, of course, it's still in sequence. It just changes point of view, right, as you go.
Right.
And I thought, I kept questioning, is this the right way to tell the story? Should I just not choose one point of view? And I just kept feeling, no, this isn't the way the story needs to be told. So I said, whatever. The story is smarter than I am. It'll get panned. It'll be the end of the story. It'll be it. I just have to do it. And I finished it, and readers said it was my best book yet. I was concerned that I couldn't master 6 different voices as first-person protagonists, right?
Right.
And that I couldn't keep the story straight from 6 different points of view. But the story was smarter than me, than I. The story was just smarter. And I just, as I teach, I just surrendered into it. And now I'm working on a 5th Quintana book. And I already have a title for a 6th.
Oh,
so the 5th story, I know it's crazy. The 5th story is, believe me, I know it's crazy. The 5th story is called The Lost Horse of Bryn Doon.
Oh.
And it picks up, in some ways, where the Bard of Bryn Doon left off. So it feels like it's that I'm writing these books in the series in groups of 3.
Yeah,
so
sounds
the first
like
we have the MoonQuest, DarkQuest, SunQuest. Now we have Bard of Bryn Doon, Lost Horse of Bryn Doon, and The Sorcerer of Bryn Doon.
Oh, wow.
And God only knows what's coming next, but I don't think I want to know yet anyhow. So
Right, right.
We'll just leave it. But I have started The Lost Horse of Bryn Doon, and it's, again, being written in multiple points of view, kind of like the Bard of Bryn Doon, yeah, with a twist.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
Because as it stands now, one of the points of view is in the present tense as a journal.
Oh.
It's like writing it as it's happening, right? And I haven't really done that before. One of the third person point of view in the Bard of Bryn Doon was third person present tense, which also kind of was freaky because how is this all going to fit together? And yet it did. So the Bard of Bryn Doon is along the same lines with another twist or two. Yeah, it's a crazy roller coaster.
Writing is, and I really like to talk about just letting it come and following it.
My attitude is if the story is in fact smarter than I am, and all that's really saying is that my unconscious mind is smarter than my conscious mind,
right?
And knows more. That's really all I'm saying.
Right.
And if I sit down and plan the whole thing out ahead of time,
mm-hmm.
then I am blocking out the possibility of all the things I don't know.
Exactly.
And all the things I don't know are like the bottom of the iceberg, and all the things I do know are like the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
And so, for me as the writer, and also for you as the reader, do you just want the tip of the iceberg, or do you want the whole thing? I mean, I want the whole thing,
right?
Both as reader and as writer. I want as much depth. I mean, I could never, ever, going back to the MoonQuest, have come up with that intellectually. Not. I won't not going to live that long. That long to wait. But that story, I mean, there were days where it seemed to go off in bizarre directions.
Mm-hmm.
And once I had a sense of what the story was about, maybe after about a third of the way through, I had a title and I had a sense of where it was going. So it would veer off in weird and wacky directions, and my mind would say, "You can't go there. That's not the story."
Exactly.
And I would force myself to let myself go there. And every time, it would circle back to where it needed to be. Whatever detour I made was perfect. Well, and even more fascinating, which is really complimenting my unconscious mind, not the guy who sits at the computer, but when I got to the SunQuest, I discovered things about the MoonQuest I had not known when I was writing it.
Oh.
Things that, for example, in the MoonQuest, there is a table called the Table of Prophecy.
Right.
Why is it called the Table of Prophecy? That's what it was called,
Right.
So that's what I named it. I had no idea why it was called the Table of Prophecy. and didn't really think about it until that table shows up toward the end of the SunQuest. And I discovered there actually is a prophecy. Who knew?
Who knew?
I didn't know. I didn't know.
I love that when that happens.
And with the Bard of Bryndoon, which again takes place generations later, I discovered some of the backstory behind some of the MoonQuest, StarQuest, SunQuest stories.
Oh.
I had not. There are in the MoonQuest and also in the SunQuest, there are these nasty soldier types called the King's Men in the MoonQuest, and I think there's a Black Riders in the SunQuest who ride these black stallions. They all, I mean, they're masked. I mean, it's very creepy.
It is, yeah.
It's very creepy. Well, in the Bard of Bryndoon, I discovered the story behind those black horses. Which who knew there was a story?
There was a story there. What?
I didn't know. You know, I mean, so not only did the story continue into the fourth book, into the Bard of Bryndoon, it brought more depth and richness to the preceding stories, because I was able to discover for myself as the writer what was underneath some of the stuff in the earlier books that I had no idea about. I mean, unconsciously I did, but that's going back to surrendering to the story. That's the reason you do it.
Right.
Because if I had said, oh, you know what, Table of Prophecy, what a stupid name, I'm not going to name it that. You know?
I don't like it. But then,
I'm going to call it something else. And then I would have short-circuited part of the denouement of the SunQuest.
Right.
Where suddenly there's a prophecy that's important to the end of that 3-book series.
And it wouldn't have been there without the change, if you had changed it.
It wouldn't have been there, and somehow, you know, the story would have been different and not as good, because I would have said, well, I'm in charge.
Right.
That's what as writers, we want to be in charge, but we're not. I'm in charge. The story's going to go my way. And what I have to keep training myself to do, what I teach, is no. The story goes its way, and you're along for the ride. So get over it. You know, get over yourself.
Get over yourself. So what that brings me to then is, and you have a book about this also, is revision.
Oh yeah, the heartful art of revision.
Right.
Well, I was a professional editor for many years, freelance mostly. That was before I kind of woke up to my creativity. And once I did wake up to my creativity, it began kind of the journey that led to the MoonQuest. I couldn't edit anymore because it was like being a professional perfectionist. I couldn't do it and let the story have its way with me. And at a certain point, I found a new way in to editing that was, instead of being entirely left brain, which still says listen to the story, and use that I had a professional editor come once to one of my editing workshops here in Sedona, pre-COVID. When she left, she said that was, for me, she said it was the missing piece of editing. And what I do is I teach people how to come up with something what I call a vision statement for the book or the screenplay, whatever it is they're writing. And it's kind of, and you can do it before you start, you can do it when you're in the middle of it, you can do it after you're done. But it's kind of going within in a kind of meditative way and discovering what the underlying purpose and theme and vision for the book is.
Oh, I like that, yeah.
And so that when you sit down to edit, revision after revision after revision, you have that as your guidepost.
So all things
you always
point to
come
that.
back to that,
right?
Because that was the inciting vision, if you will, that kindled the book, the story, whatever, in the first place. If you have that, then you don't stray. It's easy to stray in the editing process because, again, your brain gets in the way, your mind gets in the way, your controlling mind gets in the way. And if you can come back to this and say, well, this is why I wrote this book or the screenplay or the short story. So this is everything I do as I go through draft after draft after draft, it can be many drafts, has to align in some way with this.
And then sometimes you don't know out when you first start writing it, right?
I hardly ever do. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I've had a title and no book.
Okay.
In fact, I have another series of novels which is not fantasy. It's called the Sarah Stories, and actually set in parts of my hometown, which is Montreal. And when I sat down to start Sarah's Year, which is the first book in the series, I had a title, and I thought I knew what the story was about. Well,
so much
not
for
the
that.
first time. I sat down and I wrote the first scene. And that first scene, the character I wasn't expecting showed up, and the story began to revolve more around him. And I thought, well, that's all well and good, but where the hell does Sarah's Year come in? This can't be the right title. And I kept second-guessing myself and second-guessing myself and second-guessing myself. I just kept feeling, that is the right title. It is the right title. I talk to my books, I mean, I'm a little insane. I talk to my books, and so I kept getting, that is the title. And I kept, throwing my arms up in the air and shrugging and saying, well, whatever, because I don't see it. And kind of like with the Star Quest, when I got to one of the final scenes in the book, I went, oh, my God, that's why it's called Sarah's Year. Oh. And it was perfect. And actually, the third book in the series, the Emmeline paper, same thing happened. I thought, well, this is a great third story in this series. And I knew who Emmeline was, and I knew those papers were going to be about. And I began writing the Emmeline papers, and suddenly it was not the book I thought. And same thing. Well, it's clearly the Emmeline papers is the wrong title, and it wasn't. It was perfect. It was perfect for the book that my unconscious mind knew I was writing, even if my conscious mind didn't have a clue.
I understand that. That's magnificent.
Yeah, so I have so many stories about the story being smarter than I am.
Yeah.
That I get, even though it's still sometimes hard to trust.
Right.
Because I get pushed harder each time. In the end, I do give in because I do know that every time it has worked. So it's hard to believe that this one time it's not going to work.
But you do have a great website, markdavidgerson.com, right? And people can see your books there and all kinds of things. Are you doing workshops now?
No, I mean before COVID, I was doing weekly workshops at the local bookstore here in Sedona. It was lots of fun.
Yeah.
The bookstore didn't survive COVID. Well, it's more of a complicated story. The owner also was ill, and between COVID and not doing well physically, she decided to close. So it to stay closed, basically. So I had started live streaming before COVID. I had started live streaming my workshops so that people who were in Sedona could participate. And of course, when COVID closed the bookstore, I continued doing that, but it's like the entire world was on Zoom, and I just couldn't couldn't compete.
Right.
So when after about 6 or 7 months, I just said that's it.
Yeah.
It just wasn't worth doing the workshop for the 2 or 3 or 4 people who would show up from one week to the next.
Right.
So I'm not doing anything right now. I'm open to doing stuff. For sure, I'll do it.
Great.
If the right opportunity shows up, then for sure I'll do it.
Great.
But for now, I do coach writers. So
right. I saw that.
So do work one-on-one.
Great.
And you can be anywhere in the world, so that's not a big. But that's the advantage of technology. It doesn't matter where you are, as long as the time zones work.
Yep.
I have to write.
Yes, you have a lot of books.
All the books that I have to write.
Yes, you have a lot of books, and I can see them still coming. That's amazing. Well, good.
Well, I think there are like 6 more that I know. Well, including the 2 Quintana stories that I know that are coming. So yeah, I don't have any lack of ideas. I just have lack of time.
Right. Well, that's great. That's great. We look forward to seeing more. So keep in touch and let me know when the next comes out, and we'll talk again.
That'd be great. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed doing this.
Hello. And that was Mark David Gerson talking about writing and how best he writes. I love the quote he has, "The story is smarter than you are." This is Traci Hales with Right On Four Corners on KSJE 90.9 FM in Farmington, New Mexico, and 103.3 in Durango, Colorado.
Did you enjoy that podcast? We hope that you did. And if you did, share it with your friends. And if you really want to keep podcasts like this coming, please support KSJE. You can do it easily online at ksje.com.